London didn't stay rich because it won the future. London stayed rich because it rewrote the rules after it lost the past. By the mid-1900s, the British Empire was finished. The ships were gone, the colonies were gone. The power was supposed to go with them. But something strange happened. London didn't get poorer. It got quieter, and then richer again. Not with factories, not with land, not with armies, with paperwork. That matters right now because most modern wealth doesn't come from making things. It comes from controlling how money moves, and London is still one of the most important places on earth for that. Here's how. After World War II, Britain was broke, literally. The country owed enormous debts, its cities were damaged, its global influence collapsed fast. If this were a normal story, London would have faded into history like other former imperial capitals. Instead, it made a very specific decision. If Britain could no longer rule territories, it would rule transactions. The first move was almost invisible. In the 1950s, dollars started flowing through London instead of into Britain. American dollars, Soviet dollars, oil dollars, money that didn't belong to Britain, money Britain didn't regulate too closely. These became known as Eurodollars, not European money, just dollars sitting outside U.S. control. London quietly became the safest, most convenient place to park and move global cash, no empire required. This wasn't accidental, it was tolerated and then encouraged. British regulators looked the other way. Banks invented new products faster than laws could catch up. Money moved through London at night while governments slept. And suddenly, London wasn't a nation anymore. It was a switchboard. Then came the second move, legal magic. Britain's legal system was already trusted worldwide. Contracts written in English law were predictable, enforceable, boring. Boring is perfect for money. So global deals started using London law even when Britain had nothing to do with them. Oil contracts in the Middle East, shipping insurance in Asia, corporate disputes in Africa. London didn't own the assets, it owned the rulebook. That meant fees, endless fees, lawyers, clearinghouses, accountants, courts. Every global deal quietly paid London rent. Then came the third move. This one was darker. As the empire collapsed, its old territories didn't disappear, they transformed. Places like the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, Jersey, British-linked, British-protected, but legally separate. These places became financial mirrors. They reflected wealth without holding responsibility. Money could be booked there, hidden there, moved through there. London became the center of a web of offshore finance that no single government fully controlled. Not illegal, just convenient. Here's the uncomfortable math. Britain produces a small fraction of global goods, but London clears a massive share of global currency trades. On many days, more money changes hands in London than in New York and Tokyo combined. Nothing physical moves. No crates, no ships, just numbers, ledgers, agreements, and every movement generates fees. This is where the irony kicks in. The empire once extracted wealth with soldiers and ships. Modern London extracts wealth with spreadsheets and legal clauses. No flags, no anthems, just compliance departments. But this system has consequences. London's wealth is incredibly concentrated. Finance pays extremely well. Everything else struggles to keep up. Property prices explode, wages stagnate outside finance. The city gets rich while much of the country doesn't. London didn't stay rich. London became different from the rest of Britain. And the risks are growing. This kind of wealth depends on trust, trust in law, trust in stability, trust that London will stay boring. But finance is mobile. If regulation tightens too much, money leaves. If it loosens too much, scandals appear. If politics becomes unstable, trust cracks. Brexit was a warning shot, not a collapse, but a reminder. London's power isn't guaranteed, it's rented. The uncomfortable truth is this. London stayed rich after losing its empire by becoming infrastructure instead of a nation. It stopped conquering land, It started hosting money. And now the question isn't whether that system works. It clearly does. The real question is how long a city can stay rich by owning the pipes without owning the water flowing through them. Because when money finds a better route, switchboards get bypassed. And history shows that systems built on quiet power rarely collapse loudly. They just stop being necessary.